Got low music on today.
I know you have a problem. I think I'm about to start taking over music duties for this show. Right. Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, January 12th. We're almost halfway. We're a little over the third mark of the month.
That's right.
We're not quite half yet, but this is the second Wednesday of the month. If you're seeing this when we broadcast it, if not, if you're watching this later on, thank you for watching. This is Coffee Pan Dulce, and I'm Jenny-Jaymes Gunn, along with my co-host and producer, Christian Cano. Christian, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you, Jenny. Welcome, everyone, to Coffee Pan Dulce. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts, as Jenny said, along with Jenny-Jaymes Gunn, Mama Ruth, and Barb Bacon. And Barb Bacon, unfortunately, is not able to join us today, and Mama Ruth is at a basketball game. So full disclosure, we are taping this night before, but we're supposed to act like this is Wednesday morning, right? So
of course.
Happy January 12th.
Well, yes.
All right. Disregard what this says back here. It says 9:13. Right. All right. Well, welcome. We do want to thank you, everyone who joins on Facebook Live, and also those who join us on YouTube and Facebook later. As Jenny and I were talking about before the show, looks like our last three shows are averaging 3,000. The Festivus show was 4,000 views. So apparently people like to watch us when they're drinking wine late at night.
Or they've had a lot of downtime, maybe, between the holidays.
With Omicron.
And, I don't want to brag on us too much, but we do appreciate our viewers. And
exactly.
You guys are why we do this show. And actually, we like entertaining ourselves and talking. So that's very important.
That's right.
Anyway, we do have two special esteemed guests on today, and I'm super excited. And I guess we should dive right in. But first, I guess we need to salute to the show.
Yes.
And to
whatever you're drinking. Yeah. So salute to our neighbors, whatever you're drinking. I'm drinking coffee, margarita, coffee.
Irish coffee.
Irish coffee. And as Jenny said, we do want to thank our producer, sponsor, supplier, Manolo's Bakery in Central Avenue here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Manolo's Bakery, please visit your Black and brown small businesses during this global pandemic. During the last show, someone asked me what this was. I don't know if anybody knows what this is. Does anyone smoke cigars? No. All right. So I don't. What's the box that they have cigars called? A humidor? Is that what it's called? Or it's there's a box that people keep the cigars in. Well, in that box. Okay. In that box. Yeah. So in that box, there's a little sponge, a wet sponge, which keeps the cigars moist, I guess, with humidity. And there's a humidifier thing. Whenever you have pan dulce like this and you have it in a glass, you want to get a little piece of paper towel, moist it, so that way it doesn't dry out. If you put too much, it'll mildew. It'll mold. So anyway, that's what that little thing is, just to let you know. So
the good thing about it, I never let my pastries get dried out. I just eat them.
That's true.
That's true.
They always dry out.
And they go in my pie hole. That's just a really simple equation, But anyway.
That's right. All right. So let's go around the Brady Bunch screen. Introduce yourself and any imaginary button or causes you have. We'll start with Jenny, and then I believe Ms. Albright, and then Kendrick. If you'll go ahead and you want to start, Jen?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jenny-Jaymes Gunn. I'm a local LGBT advocate. I volunteer a lot with Charlotte Pride, Quality North Carolina, National Organization for Women, which is not an LGBT group, but we are an LGBT ally organization. Longest running feminist group in North America. Actually started by a little known fact, started by the suggestion from President Johnson during the civil rights era that felt that women needed a feminist voice, and his words kind of started that whole ball rolling. So kind of interesting fun fact. But as far as, let's go to Annette.
Okay, is that me?
Yes, ma'am, you're next.
Okay, hi. My name is Annette Albright. Thank you so much for inviting me. So happy that I could make it. I'm a longtime Charlotte resident. I'm also an advocate for safe schools for everyone. That includes teachers, staff, and everyone that steps upon a Charlotte Mecklenburg School campus. I'm also the education chair for the NAACP, one of the oldest civil rights organizations and world known. So I'm the education chair here in Charlotte. And again, thank you so much for having me out.
Kendrick?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kendrick Cunningham. I am a native Charlottean, involved. I'm a social justice warrior day in and day out, so I'm involved in a numerous amount of organizations, both internationally and domestically, fighting to make sure that people who are not heard, that their voices are heard all the time. So whether that's, attending neighborhood association meetings and make sure that people are directed into the right places, or listening to people, and make sure that the White House hears their concerns. I'm there fighting for us day in and day out.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts. My buttons are healthcare for all, Medicare for all, Moms Demand Action, Gun Sense legislation. I was just on the call tonight, or last night, with Moms Demand Action, Gun Sense legislation. And hey, Madam Annette, can I call you Annette? Do you mind? Okay, thank you. Since I started calling Kendrick, so I need to hook up with them because they're trying to do stuff with CMS here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then, of course, in my heart, Black Lives Matter. We always remember Joe Oldham, who was a guest of ours quite often, who passed away this last year. All right, with that said, our topic today is who was MLK? We'll be talking about his legacy and what he meant to us and that. But before we do that, we're going to very, very quickly, because we have quite a few people on here, we're going to talk about the current events in 30 seconds or less. If you want to comment on any of these very, very important issues that we made up right before the show. Omicron is breaking records in every state. I know in in Florida and all around, especially here in North Carolina and South Carolina, breaking records of people catching COVID-19. AOC, Alexandra, congressperson, tested positive for COVID. She was in Florida, I believe. I don't know if she was on vacation or she was looking for DeSantis, I think, like everyone else. And she announced she caught COVID. And then what was the last one? I wrote that down. Clay Aiken. I couldn't read my own writing. Clay Aiken has announced here in North Carolina that he is running for Congress. I believe he's trying to, they don't know yet, but it's probably going to be the sixth seat, congressional seat number 6. I think David Price is retiring and he is going to run for that. He ran in 2014. So who wants to comment on all those? If you want to, in 30 seconds or less.
I'll comment about AOC first. She was down in Florida. Her mom lives down in Florida.
Okay.
And so several people had made comments about seeing her maskless in Florida and sitting in an outdoor cafe. And but does she not like New York City restaurants? And now she's caught COVID and, probably caught it in an airport. But I think we're in that stage of the pandemic where a lot of us are going to catch it if we haven't caught it already. But the truth is, just like AOC's vaccinated, I'm also vaccinated and boosted. The people that are going to fare the best, most likely, are going to be people that are vaccinated. That's the whole point, is to mitigate the damage, keep people out of hospitals so we can use our hospitals for something other than COVID. And most importantly, it's part of a reality. It's scary. It's not fun. I'm not going to go out of my way to go get COVID. But it does happen. Sarah Palin making fun of her. I'm like, who? Who? I mean, she kind of like disappeared.
That's right.
I mean, she's about as popular as I don't even think.
Be nice.
But she's definitely a one-hit wonder. That her one hit was a long time ago. So.
How about the other two issues, Omicron or you probably mentioned Omicron?
Kudos to him, especially being an openly gay male to be running for office. I wish him all the success. And then Omicron, I mean, we could have saw this coming. We already saw Delta in the summer, and so I'm shocked that a more contagious version is going to happen. That's kind of how virology works. So
Excellent. Anyone else want to comment on those in 30 seconds or less? Like Jenny did.
Let's go with I'll start off with Omicron.
Okay.
I think that we're going to year 2 of the pandemic. I think there's a lot of things that we've learned from year 1. I think the first thing was, I always say, I would be the first to admit that the American and we wanted COVID-19 to be a one-time threat. But as we, continue to learn more about an actual infectious disease, that's what COVID-19 is that it looks like it's pretty much it's going to be here to stay with us for the rest of our lives. So I think that endemicity is going to be the focus of public health measures. And then going with AOC, I think like in the first year of COVID-19, with everyone wanted this to be a one-time threat, always wanted to put this behind us. COVID-19 was more of like something that like a lot of people probably felt ashamed about getting. But I think that like as we come to like learn more about the disease, it's not something that you should be ashamed about getting, because you're most likely are going to catch COVID-19 anyway.
It's a good point.
The best thing for you to do is to is to get the vaccine so that you don't get severely ill or die from the virus.
Exactly.
I think that's the message that we need to be running with here in America, so that we can be prepared, to mitigate hospital surges and also to ensure that people feel safe and comfortable with how they're living right now. And then Clay Aiken, that's exciting. That was an interesting twist on the play. For the 06, as you heard today, the courts upheld the maps that Republicans.
That's right. They did just last night. That's right.
Going to be running the NCO6. So I wish them all.
We'll see what happens when they start filing. Annette, would you like to comment on any of those, or do you want to pass?
I would like to comment on Clay Aiken. I give him 2 thumbs up for running for public office. That is a very admirable thing. And it's also something that's very hard because you're putting yourself out there and your feedback is people's votes. So what do people think about you? And that's something very hard to do. So, I wish him the best of luck. I hope he has polished up on his politics and not just run on being Clay Aiken, the reality TV star. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, excellent. Omicron, I'm kind of on the same page as all of y'all. If y'all been following us the last 2-3 years, that's all we've been talking about is COVID. With Dr. B comes on periodically. I'm at the point now where if you're unvaccinated and you get it, thoughts and prayers. If you're vaccinated and booster, I'm proud that I'm not afraid of it anymore. I'm boosted. Heck, I'll get a 4th booster if it needs to be. I think they said that they may request and I'll get them. I'm not afraid of getting boosted. ALC, we're all probably gonna, we want to do things that are around our family. It's a very contagious thing. I'm just glad that her response was not denial. It was, please get boosted, please get, she treated it like an adult would treat catching something like that. But that was a good point that you said, Kendrick, about, in the early days, people were kind of ashamed to say that they had it. And then with Clay Aiken, I'm excited. I think the more people that we have running for public office, the more options we have. He's a Democrat. He's very progressive. The only thing I wanted to say, because we have invited him for our show in one of our shows in February, and we hope he will watch this. I have to be really nice. Is on his page, on his website page, it said that he ran in 2014, and he said he's running again. And if elected, he will be the first gay elected congressperson from the South. I take issue with that because Lindsey Graham is from South Carolina, and that's sorry.
According to the Washington Post, he has a sweet tooth for male sex work.
This is something we would talk about on our second show, Two Queers in a Truck, but I just had to throw that in there because anyone who watches this show know that we love Lady Graham and she is just fabulous. So,
but in all fairness, Clay Aiken, if elected, would be the first out of the closet
openly
LGBT person elected to Congress in the South, which is a challenge to say the least. As anybody that's LGBT in the South, you get some legs, but you got Ted Cruz in Texas and Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. So, all right, we're going to move on because it's going to digress. All right. Jenny, you may have to take over the show here in a second because I did want to say a couple things. First of all, one of the reasons that we asked both of y'all to be on besides the fact that you're both fabulous, it's kind of cringy to have a talk show that's more Latinx based, but also I'm white, and to talk about Dr. King and Dr. King's legacy. From our perspectives, we don't own his legacy. We're not, we didn't, not that we didn't benefit from him being an American, but a lot of times I can speak for white America. White America misquotes him often, kind of skews, or I guess almost whitewash what he stood for, what he said, some of the initiatives, some of the things he did to kind of make it for own. And I quote, I called to like the recent protest in a Burger King in New York City, where this guy is an anti-vaxxer and he's wearing a Dr. King t-shirt, quoting Dr. King, but he's against the vaccine and against the vaccine mandate, and I think, how bizarre is it that probably his granddad hated Dr. King when Dr. King was alive, just based on this guy's politics, but yet he's quoting Dr. King about a vaccine mandate in Burger King in New York City. Very bizarre. It's a very bizarre time we live in. We appreciate both of y'all and value your opinions. And we really want to, I would like to start off by what does Dr. King mean to you? And can you think of anything that he said or did that struck a chord with you at some time in your life? And whichever one of y'all can go first.
When most of the time when I think of Dr. King, I consider me to have like a personal connection with Dr. King, because he's not only he's like an idol for me, but he's also my fraternity brother. And when I was in undergrad, I was able to celebrate his 50th death anniversary in Tennessee. If I'm not mistaken, it's Memphis, Tennessee. And it was a very impactful experience. I think the biggest thing that Brother King did that resonated with me was like one of his last acts is when he went to go organize sanitation workers. And when we're looking like, literally in our city today, as you all know, I'm running for City Council District 2, there's endless calls for our sanitation workers to get fair pay and get benefits that they deserve, because they are literally the people who are making our city go around day in, day out. Most people don't think about them because they, you don't see them most of the time picking up the trash or, fixing our water pipes or making sure that water is going through them and that they're functioning correctly. But without these people, like, our city would not function as it's supposed to. So that's what I appreciate Brother King for showing me, to stand up and fight for people like our sanitation workers.
One of the things that resonates with me when I hear the name Martin Luther King Jr. is resilience. And also for such a very young man at his age, the maturity that he had, and to see a vision that was further down the road versus what was right in front of him. I think one of the things for me, when I think about the Black Lives Matters movement versus what Martin Luther King Jr. was doing, is that he had the vision to say, you know what, we have to have nonviolent protests. We have to be humble. We have to keep the attention on the issues. And I think for me, that's where the Black Lives Matters, that whole organization kind of went a little left, because they didn't have the leadership in place that could see the bigger vision. And what Martin Luther King Jr. always did was he kept the attention on the issues and not him, and not violence and looting and rioting, because that takes away from the issues. So I admire that. And I also try to model myself after that, because it's times I really just want to say, hey, idiots, look. But what I will get is, well, she's just another angry Black woman. So then the attention will be taken away from the issue, and it'll all be put on me and a person and who I am and a stereotype that I fit into. And Martin Luther King Jr., even back, way back before we had social media and the internet, where every mistake that you make as a human being is captured and broadcast to the world, he had the foresight to say, hey, I cannot come out as just the typical Black male. I have to stand above everything that is done to me. And I think that today, I think somehow we have to push our leadership back in to, that foundation of morals and values and ethics, and not just everybody after everybody, and get focused back on the issues.
And I think about something that's and I've thought about this several times since President Obama was elected in 2008. And I think about like a young Oprah Winfrey that was alive when he was alive, and how he probably shaped her life, and how we probably wouldn't have had an Oprah. And if we didn't have an Oprah, would we have had a President Obama? Because she used her platform literally. Mm-hmm. I would say without a shadow of a doubt, Oprah single-handedly amplified, President Obama's platform so much with the power that she had, and the platform. But would we have had an Oprah had she not been growing up in the South and saw the legacy of Dr. King? And I think that's so powerful, because we look at people of color in the media and in places of power now, and how different that would have looked, or how different that was. I think about this often when I'm in public spaces. I think, 50 years ago, you and I couldn't have been in some of the same spaces. We couldn't even sat together and broke bread or hung out or anything. Like there was, obviously, and I couldn't present as female as well. Like I would have to stay in the club. But I think how powerful our times are, and how far we've come, and how far we need to go. But I think you made a very good point, and that we don't realize how young Dr. King was even when he was killed. He was only 39 years old when he was murdered. He was still a very young man, and it's kind of sad to think how much more he could have done for our country and for people and economic justice. What do you think, as far as some of the more high profile African-American leaders that we have in politics right now, like Vice President Harris, for example, where do you think that somebody like that could go? Do you think she's somebody that could run for president? Do you think she's going to make another attempt for, running for president? And what kind of legacy could that leave for, especially Black women? I see her as a possible role model in leadership. Annette, could you speak to that a little bit?
With Vice President Harris, she's already, broken the glass ceiling. So she's already a legacy. What I would like to see more of her is, directly head on challenging some of these issues. It appeared that when she was running for the office, she was very vocal. She spoke out a lot on the issues. And now that she's in the office, it's like she's kind of taking a back seat. And I think that puts us where we are even in today with race relations, because I think her attempt is not to overshadow the white male president. And I don't think that's something she should have to be self-conscious about. She should just be able to be her and be the leader that she knows she is, and just tackle those issues head on and be as vocal as any male in that position would be.
Good point. I have a question. Jenny, you said something. I think everyone had said something. I don't think we realize, and I mean, we know, but I don't think we can absorb what Martin Luther King Jr. accomplished in an America that was not like today. I mean, it is just, I take many things just for granted now, and how far America has gone just in 10 years, and maybe in 20 years. Who thought we would have had equality marriage, 7 years ago, And so the fact that he was able to accomplish and move this country where it could be at that time with the climate. It's simply amazing. You know, people look to like George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, and these were white men who operated at a time where you could be a white man, you could do anything. This was a person who was not, for many Americans, did not even think he was equal to them or even, and so the fact that he was able to move this country and move hearts and minds of many people, it's, to me, is the most incredible patriot we have ever had in America. And so, you know, that's just amazing to me to think about that. And I don't know that, to me, he is the most incredible American patriot we have ever had. And especially when you think of what he was dealing with at that time. And so, I don't know, I mean, you know, and I'm glad, Jenny, the way you started the show off about saying, you know, it's kind of difficult for a Latinx individual who grew up thinking he was white until he moved to Charlotte and was reminded, no, you're Latin, you're Latinx. Charlotte likes to tell you what you are. And then it's hard for us to talk about Martin Luther King when we have benefited from the legacy of Martin Luther King. But, you know, I don't know, I don't even know if I have a question in there. It's just amazing to me every time we celebrate his birthday.
I do have another question. And we've seen, and I'll bring it back to North Carolina. We've seen some recent changes. We saw the first appointment of a chairwoman, a woman of color, for the Democratic Party recently. And I'm blanking on her name. I'm sorry. My memory sucks. And then we also see the emergence of Justice Beasley is now probably the presumed nominee for the senatorial primary
Democrat.
post
Democrat.
for the Democrats.
Yeah.
That, you know, Jeff Jackson, the primary challenger, dropped out, and then Erica Smith also dropped out to run for a different office.
Sure.
So we have the emergence of two pretty high-profile African-American women in North Carolina politics. What do y'all think about both of their emergences, and what kind of expectations or hopes do you have for either one of those fine ladies?
I can say for me as a Black female that every time I hear, I'm always going to celebrate the advancement of Black people. But every time I hear the label, first Black this, first Black that, I'm like, we are in 2022. And one of the things that Martin Luther King stood for is he didn't want people to be judged by the color of their skin. He wanted it to be equal. So right now, you know, we should just be saying, you know, Sherry Beasley was elected, but we have to make that distinction because we have not advanced as far as we should have. And once we're able to just say a name and know that that person is representing, you know, running for an office or representing a party, and we don't have to put first in front of it, then I think we will have fulfilled the biggest portion of what Martin Luther King stood for. He stood for equality. He wanted everyone to be treated equal. So if we're still having to label people and say, hey, look what we done. We pushed the Black person forward. Are we really as far in this as we think we are? Or you know, are we hitting that home run? For me, I don't think so. But, you know, I of course wish the best to both of these ladies. My hope is that, you know, they are judged based on their qualification, not just because they're this Black this or this Black that, because I believe as a Black woman, it takes away from their skill set. And that's what we should be compared, not just because, you know, we're the first in the party to do it.
Good point.
I
Kendrick,
think
you
those
look like you
are-
wanted to say something.
I think those are definitely great points. I think like Vice President Harris becoming like and that was like what Annette said is true. I think the first thing that we have to acknowledge though is that it's never before been done. So I think that like once it becomes like like Vice President Harris is normalizing Black women being in leadership. Like when I see Vice President Harris, I see her. She's taking like the ball on a lot of things, like voting rights. Before President Biden even had his speech on voting rights today, Vice President Harris was traveling around the country speaking on the need to for voting rights to protect the colored vote here in America. With the bipartisan infrastructure bill, she's been out there on the front lines advocating to make sure that that the purpose of what the bipartisan infrastructure law now is meant to do is going to happen in cities like Charlotte, like decreasing our bus wait times in our city and expanding tree canopy in African American communities. And I think she's inspired women like Bobby Richardson, who is the first Black woman.
Yes, that's her name, Dr. Bobby Richardson.
Yeah, Dr. Richardson, to be the to like say like this is our time. Dr. Richardson, she's done a lot of great work in our party this year in making sure that Black women is the most prioritized voice in the North Carolina Democratic Party. She does the Black Women's Roundtable as well, and I like the same thing for Sherry Beasley. I think Sherry is also inspired. When she's seeing people like Dr. Richardson, Vice President Harris. And this is the time with Black maternal health. All three of these women support Black maternal health, access to reproductive freedom in a time when all those things are being restricted. I think it's so important that Black women are stepping up and leading in our country because they're the most disrespected person in America. So I see a time of inspiration and a time for Black women to step up and lead and take the charge.
Hey, Jen, I have a question, and I want to see what everyone has to say. We are a nonpartisan show, but I'm a Democrat. Jenny's a Democrat. Barbara's independent. Mama Ruth is independent. The other two people we had as hosts were libertarians. Do you think that, to your point, Annette, about, I noticed in the Democratic Party, and that now the North Carolina Democratic Party is not the same as a lot of state parties.
Exactly.
It's like 20 years behind the time.
Yes.
Do you think that the Democratic Party seems to be sometimes the worst abuser of holding people back? For an example, when Clay Aiken has to say, I will be the first gay elected, Republicans don't say those things. Republican candidates, they don't say, we had a person who, Sonia Nichols, who was running against, who I voted for actually, against Jeff Jackson. And she never, on any of her collateral or any of the Republican things I saw, Black candidate Sonia Nichols. No one ever, they never said that. But Democrats, what I hear is, I don't know, are we like our worst enemy sometimes on things like that? I don't know if that's, anybody have any comment on that? I know Jenny probably does. So I don't know. Does anybody have any comment on that? Since we're only about 15 minutes, 20 minutes left.
Yeah, I can say
Okay.
the Southern Democrats are a special group of people. And I think that sometimes we are, I left the Democratic Party about maybe 4 years ago and became an independent. And the reason, one of the reasons are because we're split within our own party. And I noticed it when I would go to some of the events, because it depends on who you are and what part of town you in, whether or not you got invited. So I started inviting myself to all the white, nice Democrat white women who were sitting in a room, and I would walk in and say, hey, y'all, because I didn't get an invite. So, so we, the Democrats are split within their own party. And if they do advance a Black person or a Latino person or LGBT, the letters, then it's like, hey, look at us, look what we did. And in the Republican Party, except for Donald Trump, no one, has to say, this is my Black friend. Yeah. So that I do have a problem with that. Yeah. And I do think that's an issue.
Kendrick, you have anything? And then I know Jenny has it. I can see it in her eyes. I can see it in those beautiful blue eyes. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kendrick.
I think a lot of times like when for me, because I also have the ability like the opportunity to serve as an operative. I think a lot of times when we're looking at our constituencies, I think one of the reasons why when we're prioritizing what message we go out there and say, when we're saying things like first Black woman, I don't think it necessarily has. It's like the people we galvanize as Democrats. Those are things that catch people's attention. I mean, it's quite frankly the same. Like the Republicans don't have the constituencies we have as Democrats. If you say that to Republican constituents, they're like, oh, I don't think I would like this. I think it's a big messaging tactic. But like I like it's making me also think about, is that the best messaging tactic for us to use as Democrats in when the time when we're gridlocked, especially here in North Carolina, 50-50 Republican Democrat, is that possibly one way that we can go in order to sway unaffiliates in our favor and to flip the state of North Carolina? I think that's a good question to ask.
Good point. Jenny, 30 seconds.
I think there's a fine line between celebrating diversity and cracking different ceilings and abusing it. And I think the problem with North Carolina is because it has been so far behind.
We got a whole list. Hold on.
State, especially even in the South, is because there's this frantic energy sometimes that we got to play catch up in so many different ways. Like we saw the push for the NDOs last year all over North Carolina for the non-discrimination ordinances. And there's this, we got to modernize. And but at the same time, what kind of pushback will we get? What kind of damage do we do? Who do we alienate? Where we lose an Annette from the Democratic Party because they go, the party's divided. And that is the balance. That's the trick to balancing a big tent party versus a more monochromatic party like the Republican Party that has a very singular process. Now, the chicanery that they're up to all the time is pretty much the same. You can predict what a Republican response is going to be. The issue with having diversity in a party like the Democratic Party, and it is very broad because you can take a mansion that is a Republican light that's a Democratic senator, and you can put them on the same balance sheet with an AOC that is a flaming progressive on the other side, young, the person of color, the whole nine yards. And they're in the same political party, sitting in the same body.
Like a family, like a family.
So this big dysfunctional family, sometimes we don't know sometimes when to throw a punch and when to hug. And that's where we got to figure it out, is who we need to rally behind and how many people we need to rally behind. But speaking of that, I wanted y'all's take. Michelle Obama, former First Lady, announced this week her voting registry initiative. A million people is their goal. They've signed up 31 different orgs, civic engagement orgs, and voting right groups all over the United States thus far, to fight for our right to vote and to get people involved. What's your take on that? If y'all have a take on that, and what do you think about Michelle Obama being involved with politics? As far as that, you plus or a minus, or how do y'all feel about her?
Well, personally, I love Michelle Obama. She can be involved in anything she wants. She can sell Girl Scout cookies, and I'm right there.
We did say that, but I never know. Because Michelle, I've seen, Mrs. Obama. Sometimes people have different reactions to her, so I never know what quite the reaction will be. But I'm glad to hear that. But keep going, Annette. Sorry.
But one of the things that I think that is happening within the Republican Party, one thing is they are a group of one, no matter how terrible they are. And, we've seen that with the Lindsey Grahams, with the Ted Cruzes, how, we hate Trump, he's disgusting, but guess what? In order to keep our party together, we're going to love him. The Democratic Party is very shattered. And so what's happening is, because the Republicans are organized and they have a single platform, if we don't get those Democrats registered to vote, we might see a flip in this country. And so we are charting unprecedented waters. You know, the Republicans are doing everything they can to minimize the Democratic vote, because they know the only way that they can win the country is to stay as a, you know, a very cohesive group and to block those Democratic votes. So Michelle Obama being involved in politics, you know, I'm hoping that that will help, and that she will reach those people who don't realize how important their votes are. And, you know, if she can help us win on that level, I think the worst thing that could happen is for Trump to go back into office in 2024. And I think that is the thing that is bringing out the ex-presidents, the wives, the celebrities, because it's a possibility that that could happen.
Sure. Kendrick, you want to comment on any of that?
Yeah, I think that hits it hits the nail right on the head. 2020, we almost did not win this election if we were not electorally strategic. In this election, we, you know, Republicans out-registered us in the 2020 election. The secret is, I think a lot of the secret is, if there was another Black woman on the ticket with President Biden, everyone would prefer Michelle Obama over Kamala Harris. So I think for former First Lady Obama to pick up initiative, you know, there's 3 parts of a campaign: voter registration, capacity increasing, and get out the vote. Voter registration is the most important thing that we can do as a party to ensure that we are galvanizing new voters, and that we're persuading unaffiliates and you know, possibly Republicans who are disgusted with what's going on over there on that end, to believe in our party's platform and to vote for us. So I'm hopeful. You know, I look forward to the results of the initiative, and I hope that it, you know, has great outcomes for us in 2022, 2023, and 2024.
Hey, Jen, I got to say something real quickly. I have been waiting. We moved here 9 years ago, and almost the majority of people who live in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, anybody, you know, our viewers who aren't from North Carolina, you kind of have to live here to understand the dynamics of this area. I have been waiting 9 years to hear someone who is a Democrat who is talking strategic. We have leaders, and I'm so hopeful for our new party chairperson. I'm a Democrat. We've had party leaders who act like they've never worked in a business environment before. Yes. There's no strategy, there's no recruitment, there's no training, there's no, you know, Republicans, they train them, they operate like a corporate 500 company. We operate like, well, Billy Joe, you know, good. He's
always done it. We'll let him do it. If not, we'll pass it on to his grandson.
And this is, and the majority of people aren't from North Carolina, who live in North Carolina, but we still operate as if though the moderate white women is the most important vote to get in North Carolina. They're not. They're not. And I have been waiting for our party to finally acknowledge, like what Georgia has acknowledged. It take them a while, you know, to say people of color, younger and browner people are the base of our party. And if you want to come along, come along. But those are the ones we need to get out to vote, because who else are you going to vote for? Trump? Well, hopefully they won't. But anyway, so I have been waiting so long to hear that, so I'm very excited. I know this wasn't a political show, but Jenny, go ahead.
Well, I think even Dr. King's life was political. I mean, I think you can't separate a civil rights movement from politics. I mean, because, you know, part of getting the baseline of law and the legal framework to give more equity and equality is going to have to be political, because you're going to have to move political bodies to take action to create a baseline or a safety net to protect whichever group we're talking about at the time. Like last summer with Charlotte City Council passing the NDO, for example, we had to move them from cringing and twitching and hemming and hawing for about 8 months, and finally we got them to pass it. But it was it looked real smooth on TV, but it was anything but. And when you have a 9-2 Democratic body like that.
You're like, what's taking so long?
Well, that's why I said one of the early spring meetings.
That's right.
When we were talking to a couple of the Democratic city council people was I'm trying to do the math in my head, but it seems to come out the same, that we still have a 9-2 advantage. What's taking so long? Like, are we here yet? And it seemed really bizarre because it was not just protecting LGBT people, but natural hair, veterans, pregnant
pregnancy.
people. There was more than just one group. Obviously, the LGBT one was going to draw the most fire from the Republican side of it, and people that may protest it or come to the hearings and say, we don't supposed to support the gays and all that kind of stuff, and throw their bubble around. But I did have a question in this. We're looking at the political landscape for 2024. And one of the names that's been thrown out, I thought it was very interesting, assuming that Biden does not run again, and there's a high probability due to his age, he may retire in 2023. That's my theory, actually, is he may retire in 2023. What would y'all think about a Harris Obama ticket as a Michelle Obama?
I personally think that would be an amazing ticket. Michelle Obama has said 1,000 times it will never happen.
Yeah.
That she will never go into politics. So I don't think it will ever happen. But I mean, I think, of course, it would be absolutely fantastic. If you look at the history of the political movement in the Black community, it has always been pushed and led by Black women. So that would just be a fabulous, absolutely wonderful ticket.
I will say, not to toot my own horn, but last year, early in 2020, Charlotte Black Pride was handing out meals. We were doing a drive-through. You come up and you pick up a box meal, as many as you want. We didn't really limit it to anybody. As part of like pandemic assistance, and I was hanging out there with my friends, and we were talking politics. Biden had already pretty much secured the nomination, but he had not picked a vice president running mate yet. I was the only one in the room that said Senator, because she was Senator at that time, Senator Harris was the deal, and everybody looked at me like I'd lost my marbles. And they said, well, she spoke out against Biden so hard, and I said, but that's what he wants. He wants somebody to be a diametrically opposed person that has a different angle. He's not going to make the mistake that Hillary made, which was Hillary, no matter what you think of her, is a fairly boring person. She's not super exciting to listen to.
Oh, that's what I think of her.
but she picked an equally, if not a worse, boring running mate in Tim Kaine. Like literally the most vanilla, and not just because of skin color, but just it was exciting as vanilla.
I agree.
I mean, just exciting as notebook paper. And I think the reason why Biden picked Senator Harris, not just because of her skin color or her gender, I think it was because she was a fiery prosecutor. She had a certain angle. She has a certain kind of voice. Even when she rolls her eyes, she has a certain pizzazz to her that just sets her apart in many different ways and her intellect. And I think, and I'm going to predict it here now, I believe two predictions. I believe that Biden.
All right, 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Biden, you're going to hear this first. Biden is going to retire in 2023.
Okay.
Vice President Harris will then roll up to be president. And it's easier to win if you're a sitting president.
Sure.
The second thing that guarantees she can pick her running mate, and I'm saying here today, I believe it's going to be Michelle Obama.
Oh, well.
And I've got a lot of reasons why.
Yep.
But I
Well,
believe one of the reasons that she is trying to become more in the news again, I think there's a big part of
sure.
this when we vote thing. And I
Mhm.
think that is setting the stage.
Mm.
We'll mark the tape.
She has such a great life.
So in
Why would you? I
2023,
mean,
when
yeah,
I say,
sure.
you know,
All
this
right.
gets syndicated,
That's right. Yeah, well,
that
Jenny
a
has made
Aaron
predictions.
Obama,
Jenny has made predictions 2019, 20 have come true. So I would take
pretty
you to
much all of
Vegas,
them.
Jenny. Yeah, I would take you to Vegas. Hey, listen, we only got about 5 minutes left, and I want to kind of end it on the Martin Luther King Jr. The 30 seconds or less before we kind of wind down the end and talk about where you're going to be. Does anyone think that our communities of color, because I truly feel like it's not just the Black community anymore, it's the Black community, the Latino community, the Asian community, all communities of color. I mean, we're all the same people that hate me hate all the other people of color. So I'm not like an exception, especially here in North Carolina. And so do you think we could ever have a leader like Martin Luther King today? One voice. Do you think that we're so diverse that it would be hard to have one voice? I don't know. Does anybody, 30 seconds or less, want to comment on that? Kendrick, I see you there.
I would say,
Yeah.
when I went to go celebrate Dr. King's death anniversary is because I picked up his mental leadership. So I hope, I hope to achieve things like that.
Oh, that's a good answer. Excellent. Annette, do you think do you think we need someone like Martin Luther King today? I mean, just
I absolutely think that we need someone like Martin Luther King Jr. Do I ever think we'll see that again? I do not. And the reason being is that you have to look back during his era. The Black culture was considered one culture.
Yeah.
And everyone, was pretty much, on the same page. And now we have so many subcultures of the Black culture. And I don't think that one leader can emerge,
Sure.
that will satisfy everyone, every person of color, because there's so many different agendas out there now. And I think that's one of the things that really pains me, is because we can no longer look and say, hey, that's my brother, that's my sister, because, we all don't have the same agenda. So I think we absolutely need it, but I don't see it was happening again. And I think that the closest we got was Barack Obama. And I think even the challenge was too much for him.
Yeah. Jenny, 30 seconds.
Well, I guess I have a little different take. I don't believe Dr. King was the sole voice from the 1960s. I think the discounts that, a Louis Farrakhan or an Angela Davis or the Black Panthers movement or any of the other, freedom fighters that spoke truth to power. I believe that there was a lot of cultural income. I think white America has done a really good job of fusing Dr. King into almost like a Santa Claus, almost like a, kindly, gentleman that was, that spoke very non-inflammatory words. But if you read his letters, when he was in prison, and you read some of the voracious anger that he spoke with too, and the passion and all that, if you actually do a deep dive into what he said, there was some very revolutionary stuff that seems to get skipped over by white historians. And I point that out because I think as we look, because this is 50 plus years since he was murdered, I believe that we filter a lot of our history. Do I believe he standing alone? No, absolutely. I think he stood on the shoulders of many brothers and sisters in his community that they deal. And I believe, and I can't speak for Black America. I all I could do is from the outside looking in. I believe we have some beautiful and amazing leadership. I think we have some beautiful icons like Stacey Abrams that is fighting the fight, and we see Michelle Obama, we see Vice President Harris, and I think they're fighting in their own ways. I think they're accomplishing things quietly and smoothly and brilliantly. And I think they're pushing the envelope way more than we realize. We won't really realize it till after their time's passed. After we look
And
back
that's
and go, how beautiful that story
yeah.
was, including our two colleagues here on the show
Yeah.
tonight.
Yeah.
I look at both of y'all's angles of leadership and community service, and I want to thank you for doing that, and give you flowers during your time. And I appreciate everything y'all are doing, because it's not easy in a southern state like North Carolina.
Mhm.
Well, very well said, Jenny. And, we need to wrap up the show because we value your time. I do want to remind everyone about 15 minutes after we drop this show in the morning, stay tuned to our other show where we really say what we want to say in Two Queers in a Truck. Jenny and I will talk about whatever we talk about for 30 minutes, and we throw shade to everyone. I was the first person to be thrown shade in 2022. Jenny, it was the shade heard across America. So I'm still hurt by that one. Anyway, so with that said, I just want to say that, Martin Luther King weekend and holiday is so important to so many people. And we have to remind each other that there were people who did not want this holiday, that fought tooth and nail.
Absolutely.
Arizona, the Super Bowl was, those people are still living. I don't want anybody to think that they've disappeared. They've just become Trump voters, and maybe Omicron will take them out. But still, I'm just saying is that they're still there. And so, we have to be very diligent, and we need allies with each other, because, we need to stick together. But with that said, let's go around the Brady Bunch screen. Tell us where you're going to be in 30 seconds or less, since we do so well keeping in a 30-second time limit. So Jenny, you go first, Kendrick, and then Ms. Albright, we'll finish with you, and tell us where you're going to be, or anything you need to tell us.
Well, about 15 minutes after this, the other show will drop, Two Queers in a Truck. So, and it'll be loaded for bear. So watch out. I'm not doing much out in the public. I do have a Queer Society event on Friday. It's kind of a hangout type thing, but other than that, I'm staying pretty much I'm not going to many public events right now, just because old Miss Rona's making a comeback in 2022. So Kendrick?
Yeah, I'm going to be around in District 2 this week and next week, talking to voters and making sure that people are heard, and that people know about the Unified Development Ordinance and the 2040 policy map, and that we can get the development that we need in working family communities over the next 2 decades.
And where I'll be is, as usual, with my foot down CMS's throat. One of the things, they love me there. One of the things that we have to do is we have to flip that school board. It is time. And we have to change the culture of CMS. We have to change the culture of that school board. We can no longer be a majority school district that has Black and brown kids, and we're ran by a school board full of white women.
Exactly.
So it is time to flip that school board, and I will be out viciously working on getting people registered to vote and getting people to pay attention to our local elections.
Did a question? Did you run for office in 2017 or 2018? One of those years, was it 2017,
I ran
2018?
In 2017.
Okay,
and
all right.
I ran again in 2019.
The reason I'm asking that question, did you ever come to a precinct meeting here in the Old Providence, South Charlotte area? I don't know if you ever came to one of our precinct meetings if you were running for office. There was a candidate. The only reason I'm saying this, because this is typical of what we've been talking about. There was a candidate that came, a person of color, a woman, came to this. This is our former precinct chair, who was moved, thank goodness. Came to our precinct chair, came to our meeting. We're all sitting around, all the old white people and me, and the precinct, the candidate came in and said, she was going to pass out some palm cards, and the precinct chair said, no, 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 can't pass anything out, just leave them on the table. And then a white candidate came in and started passing stuff out, and she didn't say anything to it. And I said, hold on a second. Needless to say, I have not always been welcomed at our precinct meetings here in Mecklenburg. So,
No, that definitely was not me.
Okay, all right. Well, if it was you, I was really, I apologize on behalf of the whole entire precinct. All right, so, I will be like most Dallas Cowboy fans, because I understand that Annette may be a Dallas Cowboy. I don't think she is. I will be watching the Cowboys play the San Francisco 49ers, a team that I don't want to play because it's like 90s all over again. And
Right.
I will be doing that all weekend, watching football. That is my excitement. So, and wearing a mask and trying to stay safe. So we thank you so much. I do want to remind you that next week we do have a show with Reverend Dr. Rodney Sadler and some other guests. They'll be talking about Reimagining American Project. They will be educating us on that. And then once again, and I've been waiting to say this, Jenny, the last show of the month is, we have 2 topics. You get a twofer. On the 26th, it's modern day white supremacist and how to eat a tamale. So be there on Coffee Pan Dulce. How was that, Jen?
It's like getting a Groupon, but a podcast version. We've got guns that look like knives. We got knives that look like guns. Saturday.
Exactly. And the fact that we have to tell people how to eat a tamale, you take the corn husk off.
Well,
all right. Okay.
We do have a
I
certain
got my
amount of people that,
I don't know how to use tamales.
Oh, that's right. All right.
there you
What was
go.
that?
There you go. I said, you know, I was going to say something else, but I'm not going to say that.
Yeah, that's right. We'll save it for the next show. All right. Thank you so much, Kendrick and Miss Albright. If you'll just stay on just for a second so we can do a brief promo. And I want to thank everyone for joining us on Coffee Pan Dulce. Everyone knows I'm technologically superior in this household. So, that work? Yeah.
Yes.
Every time yeah. All right. Bye, y'all. See you next week.